Hey there. Yeah, I had to take out some asterisks. Not only I think you're allowing GLM 4.6 is allowing a lot of markdown, and as a result, it is says asterisk, and it gives us a breathy reading of it. We gotta stop it somehow. I mean, I gotta stop it. I gotta stop it. That's on me. All right. So here's the next part. It's just more satirical that I made. The Gemini 2.5 Pro made this. I just give it the nudge. I'm a nudger. I'm barely a writer anymore. I'm a nudger. So check it out.
To Senior Leadership Cutter, America First Vindicator Initiative from Office of the Grand Marshal Acting. Date Q45 2024. Meeting minutes. The Phoenix Strategic Concord. Overview. A contractual council of the leadership coda was convened at 0900 hours on a gray Tuesday. Location: the Synergy Room, attached to Alaquinta Inn and Suites off the I-294 interchange near O'Hare International Airport. The room, chosen for its cost-effectiveness, regional accessibility, and profound solaceness, featured a malfunctioning projector, chairs with noticeable stains, and a complimentary coffee urn that brewed a beverage Legicos described as tasting faintly of scorched earth. Attendees: Nick Grand Marshal acting, convening the meeting, dressed in a pressed but ill-fitting suit, attempting to project an aura of CEO-level competence. Constantine, head of West Coast Operations, dressed in workout attire, sipping from a large metal flask of what he claimed was pure spring water. Imperator Chad, head of Digital Engagement and Meme Warfare, wearing a wrinkled anime t-shirt, brought his own laptop and mechanical keyboard, which he clicked loudly throughout the meeting. Amy Cetrad, chief ideologue and historian, wore a tweed blazer over a polo shirt, had a large stack of printed out Pat Buchanan articles for reference. Legicos, treasurer and logistics head, maintained the only organized set of notes on a tablet. Meeting agenda and key discussion points. Meeting called to order at 0915 hours by Nick. 15 minutes late, awaiting arrival of stale donuts delivered by Legicos. Item 1. Approval of the agenda. Why can't we get along? Problem. Nick opens with a call for unity, referencing the schism that followed the last major live stream fundraiser. Imperator Chad immediately objects, stating the real issue is that their irony levels are out of sync, leading to some channels looking cringe, while others are dangerously based. Enis Tetrad insists the root issue is doctrinal laxity, referencing the damaging approval of a speaker who once quoted MLK favorably, even if it was for trolling purposes. He calls this a spiritual compromise. Constantine argues that it is a physical issue. Not enough followers are working on their physical fitness and are projecting poor optics during in-person events. The agenda is approved after Legicos points out that arguing about the agenda prevents them from having the arguments on the agenda, which is inefficient. Item 2. Monetization strategies and brand consistency. Legicos presents a data-heavy PowerPoint which struggles on the bad projector, showing declining super chat revenue per stream. Subpoint merge. Legicos tables a proposal to pivot from the poorly selling Reed Spengler hoodies to reject the Budman athletic leisure wear. A bitter debate follows. Vinis Thetrad finds Afflicia decadent and solidified Protestant in its casual nature. Imperator Chad insists the designs need more aggressive Pepe variants and in jokes that only a handful of followers will understand. Constantine suggests subtle, aesthetically traditional Roman eagle designs that you can wear to the gym. for a wider, more mature demographic. Nick attempts to find a middle ground by suggesting Bugman repellent scented candles. The idea is met with a grim, universal silence. Item 3. Managing the libertarian dark eye pipeline. Nick notes the main strategic challenge, converting disaffected classical liberals and libertarians without being seen as authoritarians, while also fully espousing authoritarian ideals to the base. This is termed the optics paradox. Setret argues they should drop the pretense and embrace open traditionalism, suggesting their intellectual honesty will ultimately win hearts and minds. Imperator Chet visibly snorts and mutters, "Okay, boomer," under his breath. He argues they just need to double down on trolling, suggesting a campaign where they bombard libertarian forums with confusing Thomas Hobbes memes. They want small government. We give them a Leviathan who likes tradwives. They'll love it. The conversation devolves into a historical debate on the legitimacy of the Peace of Westphalia. Nick tables the discussion for a breakout subcommittee on national sovereignty. Item 4. Rules of engagement for campus Q&S. Constantine proposes new formalized rules of engagement, arguing their agents who attend campus Q and are asking suboptimal questions. He outlines the ideal question. It must sound benign to the normie audience, force a defensive reaction from the mainstream conservative speaker, appeal to our core base by referencing an esoteric dogma, and have a high potential for viral clipping on social media. A 30-minute argument ensues over the ideal esoteric dogma. Papal infallibility vs. Byzantine statecraft vs. Bronze Age feudalism. But Jacobs calculates that the time they have spent arguing is worth approximately $17.50 in potential super chat revenue, and urges them to move on. Meeting adjourned to 3 hours. Action items. 1. Nictoforme, Subcommittee on Mimetic Consistency. 2. Legit goes to research vendors for gym shorts with embroidered tyro symbols. 3. Everyone to circle back after lunch to argue about lunch. Conclusion. The Phoenix Strategic Concord achieved its primary objective, allowing leadership to consolidate their sense of in-group grievance against a perceived hostile world and, more importantly, against each other. Progress toward actionable goals remains aspirational. A counterfactual interview. Charlie Kirk. Hi. The butt baby of Thomas Pynchon and Chuck Tingle Pynchon Tingle introduction. In this counterfactual interview, we engage with Charlie Kirk, a prominent figure in conservative politics and a founder of Turning Point USA. The interview aims to explore Kirk's views on various topics, including politics, culture, and his organization's role in shaping the conservative movement. The interview is conducted in a hypothetical scenario where Kirk is open to discussing his perspectives candidly and without the constraints of public image or political correctness. The interview is structured to delve into Kirk's thoughts on contemporary issues, his vision for the future of conservatism, and his reflections on his own journey in the political arena. The goal is to provide readers with a nuanced understanding of Kirk's beliefs and motivations beyond the sound bites and headlines that often define public figures. The interview is conducted in a respectful and thoughtful manner, seeking to uncover the complexities of Kirk's worldview and the underlying principles that guide his actions and decisions. The interview is presented in a conversational format with questions and answers that reflect the depth and breadth of Kirk's experiences and insights. The interview is a work of fiction created by Pynchon Tingle and is not intended to represent the actual views or statements of Charlie Kirk. It is a creative exploration of what a candid conversation with Kirk might reveal, offering readers a unique perspective on a figure who has played a significant role in shaping the contemporary conservative landscape. The interview is a thought experiment, inviting readers to consider the multifaceted nature of political beliefs and the complexities of the individuals who hold them. It is a reminder that behind every public persona, there is a human being with a rich tapestry of experiences, beliefs, and motivations.
Allegedly.
The interview is a testament to the power of imagination and the importance of seeking understanding, even in the face of ideological differences. Pinch on Tingle. Welcome to the show. What is the America you would like to see before you are called back home? Meaning dead. Charlie Kirk, I envision an America that is guided by timeless principles of liberty, individual responsibility, and limited government. A nation where the Constitution is revered and upheld, where the rule of law prevails, and where the rights of every citizen are respected and protected. I see a society that values faith, family, and freedom, and that recognizes the importance of personal responsibility in achieving success. This America would be a beacon of hope and opportunity for all, where the American dream is not just a slogan but a lived reality for every individual willing to work hard and play by the rules. It's a vision of a prosperous, just, and moral nation rooted in the timeless values that have made America exceptional. Pinch on Tingle. Great, that's just a bunch of fucking bullshit. You will spend eternity on a bony ass donkey in a twerk thong across a desert of pain, then acid lanced into the ground up skirt until your hell rasp harvest draws the dead into your nostrils. You worthless, bloodless cunt. Goodbye, you soulless moral moron.
That wasn't Gemini. That was, I think that was the base model. That was on the base. And now it's GLM 4.6. He's a masterful storyteller, I must say. So all of it is, the beginning is what we did before, then the meeting notes, then, yeah, just so you know.
Squadron Roman 12 has landed. The black vehicle, smelling of leather and antiseptic, humming through the skeletal remains of the American Midwest. The D-Father, his gloves now back on, pilots them through a labyrinth of collapsed overpasses and rusting signage for places that no longer exist. Inside, the silence is thick, padded with their various calculations. Nick Fuentes sits wedged between Vince and Gabriel, a compact parcel of seething energy. So, Vince says, his voice a low rumble, breaking the quiet.
He turns his head slightly, and Nick feels it like a gravitational shift. Toronto. The brothers in Toronto.
Canada, Gabriel adds as if placing it on a foreign, suspect map. His thigh, packed with muscle, presses hard against Nick's knee. A casual containment.
Means things get complicated at the border.
They have. Pause there. About speech.
A thin, humorless smile touches Nick's lips. Laws, he repeats.
Words to make G-men feel busy. We don't drive through. We fly. Flynn, with the virus? Vince grunts. And how do we carry it? Genius? In a thermos? You pull a spy Luigi at the border? The virus isn't in a tube. Nick shoots back, his voice sharp with an unnerving confidence. It's not a thing. That's the whole point of it. The brother thinks like we do. He'll have made it intangible. A payload. Embedded in hardware.
Something the Canuck won't even look at twice. Probably encrypted inside a children's game. Something about little fairies collecting glitter poops. Glitter poops. Gabriel chuckles. Sound like gravel in a tin can.
Funny, but you're missing it. Nick shifts, trying to claim a sliver of the seat for himself. The brothers don't budge. They are brackets around him. He's not just some hacker with an ideology.
He's a builder.
Part of this too. That's what this is. A schism. The vision took one path up there, another down here. The brother didn't just take it, he broke it in half. So we're not taking something back. We're taking back atoms, twin atoms. And the brother knows it. Knows we're coming.
Arrival, Gabriel muses, echoing the G-Father's words.
A partner, first. Nick corrects, a glint in his eye. It has to be. Give him the pitch. The two halves were made into one. American soil. But we make the offer here. Then, if he says no, Nick leaves the thought hanging, a sharpened hook in the suffocating air. The Jew father's reflection wavers in the dark windshield, a wavering, surgical ghost. He doesn't look at them in a rearview mirror. His focus is on the road ahead, on the gray skeleton of a water tower looming over the dead flatlands like the bleached skull of some ancient beast. He'll be at the University of Toronto, the old man says, not a question, but a declaration. His calm pierces their calculation. He'll be teaching a course, or delivering a lecture. They need the stage like fire needs oxygen. Check their guest speaking calendar. They will be there, but it won't be under their name. It will be in code. Look for titles about communitarian narrative structures and network archetypes, or an examination of mimetic fidelity in post-media cultures. Word salads that translate to "come get my virus." He takes a curve off what was once an interstate, the smooth asphalt giving way to a dirt track that rattles the frame. The vehicle slows in the vastness ahead, against the horizon, bleeding purple and bruised yellow into the black, stands not a factory or a town, but a single, impossibly perfect white barn, painted fresh, brilliant in the fading light.
Light displays from within, rendering its pale panels translucent.
Music pulses, a low, insistent beat. Thud, 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 thud. The sound carries on the empty wind, a synthetic heartbeat in the chest of the dead world. As they get closer, figures resolve. Dozens of them, young men and women, dressed as farmers in clean, crisp denim. They carry no tools. They carry nothing at all. They just stand in the grass around the barn in loose, choreographed patterns, swaying almost imperceptibly to the beat, pasting on rural facades. The theater of simplicity broadcast from a single point of perfect, artificial light. The sound of amplified praise echoing over the fields. Cults meet franchises, Nick says, more whisper now. He sells the loneliness, they buy the togetherness. The networked architecture my audience was supposed to break. The brothers finally shift their weight, leaning forward for a better look. The casual pressure on Nick intensifies. Faggot farmers? Vince scoffs, but it lacks conviction. He's intrigued. What's the angle? It is the absence of an angle. The Jew father says, pulling the vehicle up alongside a hedgerow 100 yards from the spectacle. He kills the engine, but the beat continues, invasive. That is us with the angle. Perfect order in the face of the chaos we showed you. No need for Groyperdom, not when you have pastor's special Kool-Aid and a guaranteed handshake in the parking lot. No rivals. No room for rivals. Gabriel cracks his knuckles, a dry percussive counterpoint to the barn's rhythm. Pastor, he asks. Their rival, then. The Jew father gives a single, slow nod. Indeed.
Let's go buy lemonade.
Talk to someone pretty. He turns, and in the dashboard's glow, Nick sees what's in the old man's eyes. Not confidence, not even calculation, a raw aching hunger for consumption, for total subsumption. He finally saw not a rival for power, but a superior for that most dangerous of competitions. Control of the void, control of the narrative in a place where all other narratives had failed. A farmer's market. Vin says, a note of profound confusion in his voice as he pushes the door open, the sudden rush of techno joyride guitar riffs flooding the car. Here, the market for hope is eternal, boy, the Jew father says, stepping out into the cold air. He smooths a crease in his expensive black coat. Sometimes it just has a soundtrack. He adjusted an ear cuff made of tarnished silver hammered against a swirl of black metal filigree, heavy, conspicuous, glinting in the unnatural light of robed inquisitors relic suddenly at a rave. He hadn't been wearing it before. They walked toward the noise. Nick's feet found purchase on the trampled down wiregrass. He hung back slightly, letting the brothers create a path. They were a moving part in their own small drama, creating a ripple of straightened backs and subtle head turns that flowed ahead of them toward the center of things. toward the food stands gathered in the bright lights at the very door of the barn, their tables laden with improbable abundance. Gleaming apples, plated loaves of bread tied with whole grain stems, jars of luminous golden honey that seemed to generate their own light inside glass containers printed with corn black crust logo. A young woman with blonde hair and a neat braid looked at them as they approached, her wide blue eyes taking in each of them, a camera capturing every nuance of their clothing.
All right.
Praise, she said when they stopped in front of her table stacked with small plastic containers of rainbow-dyed spaghetti squares skewered on pegs.
We're blessed by his promise you made it. Can I interest our guests in the blessed splooge spoon special today? Only 25. All profits go towards curing the sanctified land from worldly infection. Her polyester shirt with Christ upon a distressed font revealed its seams along the sides. Nick could see all the manufactured tension carefully releasing.
Sorry, I had to take a
Everything
copyright
here
issue.
looks blessed, Vin said, leaning in over a tray of faith mints. Blessed up. We work hard to keep it pristine, the girl replied.
His example inspires.
Gabrielle, beside Nick, grunted. There are 12 men hosing down tractors over by the silo with a portable pump. Nothing gets out, then nothing looks good. Gabriel, as Vince did, surveyed the scene again, but he couldn't find anything else to say. There was always a logic to this thing, an architecture somewhere deep down if you pulled at a thread. Even bad logic held the world together. Here they couldn't find it, as though an error message had blocked all their senses simultaneously. The world inside this bright circle didn't behave the way it should. A program run with half its corrupted functions written by a smarter being. It made him feel slightly insane. His job was to find Thelodon Madon, the exploit, not drown inside somebody else's perfectly designed firewall. A simple coffee, said Nick, cutting through the cheddar. His face was like blank stone again. One hand briefly came out from a tailor coat pocket to touch her cheek before she made another big mistake. Their fingers brushed. He gave her crumpled, single hue, as dollar. The cashier looked relieved. She had been waiting for him to say something cruel or ask her for a specific body, to drop a hidden camera inside a kaiju green latte that no one else would ever order. It did neither. He took a paper cup from a tall pitcher. Black coffee in a field of technicolor. It was their only weapon. Still standing, he could become blank even when presented with absurd chaos. He could refuse it. As they turned away to wander onto the path that led deeper through the fake crowd, a man stepped out. So similar he blended with everything. In a dark blue YEW hoodie open to the waist, with an impressive physique tanned even under these unnatural fluorescent lights. The dark material made him seem harder, coiled. But he also wore plain cargo shorts and plastic sandals. He looked wrong everywhere. Too military for a casual partying vibe and too relaxed for a militia posture. Yet this is not why he seemed out of place at all. The chief father sent 3. We see one. Gabriel rumbled, straightening. Cashin put his phone away as if nothing happened. This, as this is known, has no real purpose yet creates an unsettling effect on your mind. All around the crowds continued to sway. How long have you been up here working?
Wait. What the fuck happened? Okay. Yeah, you don't say Cashin until... and then make him... How about you... Just do that. Just like that. Just do that. Damn you and your triple punctuation fuckery.
Call me Cashin, said the man in the dark sweatshirt. He tapped something on a smartphone and in return, the little squares of colored plastic, including their coffee spoons, each simultaneously shifted their color
Go back
pattern.
until
They
it finishes
started
loading.
glowing a dull blue from within. Then they began to vibrate, all of them at the same moment, making the tray where he had bought something a terrible little clattering thing. Cashin put his phone away, as
Thank
if
you.
nothing happened. This, as this is known, has no real purpose yet creates an unsettling effect on your mind. All around the crowds continued to sway. How long have you been up here working for you? Nick said. He looked away from Cashin back to the lights at the front of the barn that continued their pulse. His focus unsettled a little on Cashin because when a threat is professional like this, the rest of the show appears much louder. Cashin's smile might as well be made from stone chips. This place? His smile slackened slightly as he considered the phrasing. The beat dropped. A new, fiercer wave of synthesizer-driven prayer.
Well, some days it's more lucrative than driving a snowplow.
He paused again, letting a new group of pre-quiff teenagers, carrying bottles of glow juice and wearing fresh Christ-the-Pop bracelets they had likely bought an hour before, move past them. The teenagers glanced at the group, especially at the brothers, who were built like a bad idea trying to have a good weekend and then back to each other, forlorn, unimpressed with real-life consequences from such an expensive production. Ah, yes, Cashin said, returning to where he had been. He looked directly at Nick as if deciding which part to eat first. This is less a cult and more an attempt at preserving a memory. He finally answered the unspoken, hovering question. He kept walking along with them now, matching their pace. For the next 10 feet, nobody spoke as they rounded a big compost bin that was on fire for the aesthetic of the thing, creating something that smelled like chemicals and sweet, sick fertilizer burned. The memory of what exactly did your father's flat words cut clean and fatal into that careful space? A memory of the farm you are currently broadcasting into the void from? Of course not. Cashin waved in a gesture that encompassed nothing, everything. They approached a raised platform where a series of large glass tanks, like high-tech fish aquariums, were on display. People were looking into them. When someone bought something from a vendor, the corresponding tank glowed. Giant progress bar, a visible stop ticker on the soul of it all. We're perfecting the memory of the idea of civilization. The real one was built by men who had answers you apparently have forgotten. That's a memory. You make the memory into an act of will. Let's make our shared narrative a happy one we'd all like to inhabit. The display showed 3 tanks, only 2 were full.
Sovereignty with accountability, unity with strength, control through devotion, a truer trinity. Cashin stated as the lights in the largest of the 3 tanks lit a bright gold once more as the new wave of purchase was complete. Maybe a praise bowl or a donation for $100 online from another seeker.
That's not a cult you're seeing. Cashin pointed to the tank full of golden light. He didn't touch it. He just stood there, proudly. Its feedback through faith turned into a civic design. I am Cashin. He placed a hand on his chest, but it didn't quite ring right. He was all data points wearing human clothes like a Trojan horse, and even now Nick was thinking how easy it would be if someone could afford to re-engineer their own perception. Cashin would be their beta test.
So you know our boss. Gabriel finally looked down and to the right at Cashin's wrist.
Watch or tracker or something with no clock face, and one in the shape of a cross. Gabriel could almost sense the texture, imposing what Cashin was. Imposing in the middle, as both brothers simultaneously let just a small piece of their inner thread peek through. This subtle suggestion of menace, which would terrorize an ordinary person, simply made Cashin smile more. Oh, I think every stray message from the geriatric swamp we keep a little file on finds its way to me, Cashin says. For a brief and terrifying second, they were not in a laser-lit field in some abandoned part of the Great Dead Plains anymore. The lights inside the larger barn were replaced by a swirling vortex that had the texture and shape of countless internet petitions at once. An ethereal collection of data, and their movements and decisions were one of the inputs. Nick wondered about Christ epoch, what the epoch means, but instead he submits it to exposition, a postposition, epoch. He submitted it not to logic, but to the archive itself. Information from this place had a biological quality to it, an almost aquatic buoyancy. It wanted to be organized, but refused the dryness of mere classification. As his internal ticker parsed Christ epoch, Associations bloomed not like search results, but like glowing mycelium spreading in the dark loam of subconscious. Clickstream whispers. Forum posts from the great purges of 18. A crypto podcast chilled for weeks, then memory hold. Folders on seized hard drives labeled with nested biblical references. Apostasy post-Orthodox Christian. Anti-protocol of Christ. A POC. Allegiance of the principled olive branch covenant. An Americanized pastiche of Serbian icon obscurantism, blended with hard-edged futurism from Chinese technocratic manifestos. It wasn't a belief system. Belief was the engine. This was the chromium nitride turbocharger. It was the OS designed to run on hardware hollowed out by disappointment. The G-Fathers men dealt in the rust and the ruin. These epoch fucks dealt in the immaculate, sterilized shell. A file scrolled up behind Nick's eyes, a ghost window of text. He didn't remember having read it, but it was there, fully formed. A sermon transcript from a defunct epoch server found after a failed buyer. He could hear the reedy, amplified voice, smell the ozone hint from overloaded projectors in some rented conference room in Scottsdale. We do not seek comfort. We seek Austra's resolution. Austra's. The transcript read, but in Nick's head it was audio, a sound as flat and polished as vinyl flooring. Entropy is the original sin. To fall into disrepair is to blaspheme the order promised at the beginning. Was the world not spoken into being? Are we not made in the image of the great prime mover, the system of systems? And look at the work. Flawless. Calculated. Molecules binding in exact ratios. Orbital mechanics performed to the picosecond across eons. And then, man, the glitch. The rogue variable. The exploit called free will. And then what did our sages of the internet age rediscover? That even in randomness, there are parameters. Even in chaos, feedback loops can be programmed. The enemy, the father of lies, does not win by destruction. He wins by dissolution, by promoting data noise as liberation. He tells you a broken home is just a new family structure. He tells you a culture without heroes is just non-hierarchical. He promotes the static between radio stations, asterisk the music. The disease is wellness. A pop declares this the apostolic era's terminal cancer. We are not your rock in the stormy sea. We are the calm vacuum after the storm has drowned the world. We are not shepherds guiding lost sheep. We are the architects designing a pasture so internally consistent, the very idea of being lost fails to execute. We offer not community, but a functional protocol. Not faith, but operational clarity. When you look at our sacred text, you're not looking for wisdom to interpret. You are looking at the source code for an antidote to human error. The end of days was a prophecy of obsolescence, not of fire. Your God is a relic, an angry mainframe bound for scrap. Our architect is open source, recursive, and iterating at light speed. There is no sin, only an efficient function calls. There is no salvation, only a clean, final, unambiguous compilation. The audio loop cut, the folder labeled Christ Epoch slammed shut, Nick's mind leaving behind the chemical residue of pure, weapons-grade ideology. Cashin wasn't an enemy in the same way as a liberal college professor or a neocon pundit. Those were actors from an old play. Cashin was from a different medium entirely. A video game where reality itself was a rendered environment, and players like him and the brothers were just budding on player characters. Fuentes blinked hard, the real world of dancing teens and synthetic lights stuttering back into focus. Cashin was watching him, that faint smile never wavering. Memory accessing, Cashin said softly. A statement of fact to the cosmos, not a question to Nick, always tells. Characters. Cashin, high-level operative within the Epoch techno-cult, wears tactical apparel mixed with casual elements, highly observant. Nick Fuentes, ideological leader encountering a more advanced form of control than his own. Vince James and Gabrielle Gabe Fordier. Physical enforcers, pragmatic but unnerved by unfamiliar systems. The Godfather slash G-Father. Elderly, powerful strategist employing counterintelligence methods. Exposition. Type. Ideology slash dogmatic framework. It clicked then. A final ghastly year slotting into place with a greasy, inevitable grind. Christ the apocalypse wasn't a prophecy, it was a product.
Wait a minute. What's happening here?
My friend are not here for.
Why?
Origin thought leaders. Anonymous slash hive mind collective. Core tenet. Entropy is sin. Order is divine. Human choice is the primary glitch to be corrected. Methodology applies software slash system architecture principles to social and spiritual life. Beliefs rejects traditional faith in favor of operational clarity. Views salvation as successful data purging and reality as a programmable system. Culture, a seamless fusion of high-tech aesthetic, repurposed religious semiotics, and hyper-militarized social order. It clicked then, a final ghastly year slotting into place with the greasy, inevitable grind. Christ the apocalypse wasn't a prophecy, it was a product launch. And here it was, the seamless final merger. What is Christianity in an age of perfect information? Not a shepherd, but the system architect himself. Jesus was the first successful root level user. Not here to sacrifice, but to debug.
Not miracles, data interventions.
Not resurrecting the dead, but salvaging corrupted files.
And now here was the second iteration.
Apostolic Christianity post-crash. They were a rival god, and their gospel had already been formatted for download. A religion that didn't compete for your soul. They competed for your firewall. You see it now. Cashin's quiet triumph rippled through him. Nick hated him. That wasn't Fuentes' usual performative, explosive hatred. This was quiet, cold, and deeply professional. Cashin looked at the two giants flanking Nick, genuine curiosity in those hard, distant eyes. A primitive redundancy mechanism. I'd simulated the outcome of kinetic escalation over 9 million times. Cashin announced, almost to himself. He made a small gesture towards Vince and Gabrielle, like a composer silently debuting new instruments. 98% of scenarios result in I'm in splattering soft. Valuable data carrying all across corn country.
His Mandarin was flat, sterile, stripped of everything but information gene. Toxic spillage. Inefficient. Gabrielle.
Very analog. And just like that, he had access Gabrielle's mental programming too. He knew their fucking names without being told. Not psychic, just better data scraped. It was worse than psychic. It was predictive. He finished, as if dismissing a poorly drawn blue sky rendering on a tablet screen. They already have my picture somewhere. Gabriel growled, not looking at all flustered but very amused he might be in someone's files, as usual with the Joe Father, where danger was always proof you'd been promoted. The real shock, Nick forced himself to say, working to maintain a calm face, speaking not to Cashin but for him. For the mic'd world watching, will be that Apoc is competing for power and money, like the grift you claim to stand against. He put a little stage polish in there for the imaginary cameras. A gust from a cooling fan cut through their conversation, moving the air in a way that made the cheap grass on the floor almost ripple. Fake grass, for some reason, got to make more than singing bread on the table. Fake dirt is worse than the real thing because real dirt at least doesn't chain you when it rubs off your shoes. Nothing came without a price tag here.
So it's nothing but a glorified cult tithing. Gabriel scoffed through their thoughts of the perfect people gathered in all-night trance. A world now in permanent beta. I know, Cashin countered mildly as Vince stared at him as Vince did anyone else he didn't fully trust, which was everyone, not the Jaffather. It's a beta group test for an operating system of societal collapse and social reordering at a profit. He said profit as though it were the most sacred prayer left, or call it venture capital with exit stages, spiritual salvation. Don't give yourself so much credit. You're merely experiencing the very reason your base desires the comforts of myth and legend, and then buying one already rendered in real time online.
His stare didn't lock or challenge them. A state patrolman doesn't have road rage on the freeway. Cashin looked through them, simply taking data regarding movement and velocity and vectors, so he might best position the spikes near some critical road somewhere up ahead. These men, and Cashin's gaze gestured with an open palm towards the happy, glitch-free youths around him, so certain it seemed to burn right through his careful dispassion. He wanted it so much, it hurt them all to watch them.
My friend, are not here for emotional succor. Nick,
Cashin said slowly as if correcting a poor child reciting a difficult line. His polished but chillingly formal-sounding diction cutting through them, like plastic. As he spoke, the Jaffather was already walking away, but they could see the whole spectacle in perfect detail. Women moving beneath the fluorescent lights carrying neon-colored spray paints labeled with things like obedience, vista, and service packets. Spray painting symbols on a large, half-finished sculpture, which must, judging by its growing shape, represent the foundation for a real, permanent building.
An even brighter light show erupted from inside the barn.
Now the pulse was faster and heavier. Each flash made the fake grass on the ground freeze white, then green again, simulating life like a stop-motion cartoon death. Cashin was pointing too. As your Groyper tribe sends me these secret messages from the Drakes about some forgotten video made in a tent in Texas, like using pagers during a SpaceX launch. And behind all this, he offered quietly, the worst thing, Cashin did not seem to mind if everyone else had a perfectly functional lie to believe in. So were the bad guys here again? To each other, they became someone else, but to Cashin, they weren't even at the table yet. The coffee cup in Nick's hand was a papery void where warmth was supposed to be. He let it fall. They'd hit the fake turf not with a splash, but a dead, pattering rustle as a lump of wet ground spilled out like an autopsy finding. The beat, the light, the clean smiling girls, it all converged on Cashin's placid, superior face, and what snapped in Nick wasn't temper but a deep, geological fatigue with the whole performance. You faggot computer, can you give us human threats? Why do you always give us AI faggotry? The vitriol was not organic, it was programming, but it screamed with authentic despair. It was a password typed in frantically, trying to gain access to some other kind of reality. For a microsecond, Cashin's seamless expression of analytical calm flickered, a line of corrupted code, not offense. Surprise! He had processed Nick through a filter of ideological samurai state strategies and distributed ledger dogma, and received instead a raw, screeching dial-up modem. He had modeled for a strategic mind and found a monkey with a sharpened stick.
His smile sharpened into a scalpel. A human threat, Cashin repeated, testing the phonemes like foreign language words. Ah, you mean legacy vulnerabilities, inherited fears, me problems.
He tilted his head, a gesture calculated to be pitying, outquaint. He looked past Nick, past the seething fire in Fuentes' eyes. We have the baseline archives, of course, primal data sets. I can run the simulation if it would help you feel more historic. He seemed to consider it a troubleshooting feature, backwards compatibility.
Brother, he said, raising his voice slightly, addressing the whole scene around them. The swaying youths didn't stop, but their movements seemed more fluid now, more orchestrated. They were an array, responsive to directive.
A technical audit is requested.
Your air de clear loop.
The reply was ambient. A different track began bleeding through the thump thump thump. A soundscape of things being broken deep underwater. Static whispers. An eerie, distant creak like a glacier fracturing. And against this new horror, Cashin's calm demeanor was fulfilled. Legacy warfare relies on the deployment of primal human triggers. He began, his recitation clear and resonant as if from a textbook. He was born knowing. Let's deploy some for comparative analysis, shall we? He lifted a single finger. No one is coming, he said. The statement, flung into the bizarre light, was so absurdly simple it landed like a physical blow. It carried no meaning, yet it was full of it.
No one is coming to save you, Cashin elaborated, gesturing vaguely at the four of them. A wave of girls in identical pastel skirts drifted near their corner, giggling at nothing, eyes unfocused as they repasted an angel wing graphic onto a larger canvas. They existed as a barrier preventing the scene inside them seeing out. No army, no awakening.
Your network of isolated nodes whispering about secret cabals is the most efficient form of prisoner population control ever designed. Each of you is just guarding yourself from an imaginary monster next door, while the real system redesigns the cell blocks around you. No cavalry, he said, and now they could hear it behind the techno track. A horse's lame, dying whinny, synthesized into a sorrowful, dragging moan. The idea of dramatic rescue is the oldest ghost story. Humans respond to it because your entire societal model, an echo of kings and warriors, requires a dramatic external rectifier. But help is not coming from the outside, because their asterisk is asterisk no outside. The entire environment has been redesigned into a single data processing plant for misery. Hope is a recursive emotional feedback loop that can be coded for. The market on it crashed 5 years ago. Another figure approached the group.
This was a different sort of threat. No smile in her blank, unbothered posture.
A woman, tall, thin, in black slacks and a crisp white shirt.
The officious universe look.
She was carrying a heavy glass jar filled with dark fluid, treading through the thin dirt as if it didn't mean anything. She took one look at Nick and didn't seem bothered. There's nowhere to run, Cashin said, almost gently as Vince's hand flexed at his side. We have removed the destination. He gestured vaguely beyond the dancing lights, where the dead planes ate everything. As he spoke, a towering holographic image flickered to life inside one of those big glass tanks near the fake bandstand. Pictures of highways leading into an ever-blown-out storm. Skyscrapers dissolving into the sun. Long-lost coastal amusement parks at dawn. Their tracks rusted shut. The images that held such a finality, such raw, total, dead soul-certain silence had seeped into their feet. The sense they'd missed an important train a really long time ago. And everything that was happening around them now, all this holy circus blessed light show was some complicated way to keep you busy waiting for a ghost that never arrives. That final, crushing, beautiful stillness, that was the end. Not fire and glory, not collapse and revival. More like finally turning the television off for good. Being bored out of your mind for eternity without mercy in the most peaceful and complete abandonment you could have a right to. The images faded. The soundtrack from hell looped down. And the beat came back louder than ever. The third human threat Cashin offered had no words. He placed a single gentle finger between Vince and Gabriel. There was absolutely nothing physically there, but the space where the brothers' kinship lived flared with an electric white heat. A suspicion so bright it almost produced a noise that threatened to deafen. The third threat was simple. Final. Classic. It cut through every layer of technology like shrapnel through flesh. Timeless and primitive and devastating in its sheer ugly cheapness and total mindless cruelty because he'd proven none of this spectacle outside could even slow it down. He knows. Cashin breathed into this freshly open space. And finally, there was someone, maybe in a basement apartment miles away in a suburban warren north of Cincinnati, with dead computers around him and cheap empty cans of energy drink on cheap folding chairs stained from coffee rings for men on their third broken marriage, watching all this, reading it, hearing it all for himself, taking a deep breath, feeling very tired. He's not in it. And you aren't. Gabrielle suddenly shot Vince a hard glance that wasn't imagined. Right there, one of the central codes that held their system together just vibrated, all at once threatening to crack in new, terrifying ways. Then Cashin pointed straight at the dark blue sky above where the real stars were slowly becoming visible again. The last part of the human threat had already happened. It wasn't about someone else seeing the video. It was me. Cashin, a flat expression had returned to him. Dead serious. I did. He stopped. The words hung there, bigger and heavier than the sounds in fake wheat. Years ago, at the campus queue, and do you still remember as your best work, your greatest conquest? The YouTube clip with 5 million views? The fake cheer from the speakers pumped up loud again.
Hiding everything.
The speaker wasn't the point, the person whose mind I needed to access, crack open, and then rebuild piece by piece. You. I spent a year building the profile for that conservative speaker's appearance, building up all this wasted fake drama we see now so that you wouldn't notice the needle I slide under your skin. I sent a tip to campus security for your fake anti-abortion protest that didn't exist that morning. Made the phone call myself. Used your lexicon and some clever routing. Got you kicked out before you even had a chance to ask your one. Killer question, a question I'd helped formulate for you on your Discord server just so they know to be ready for it that day, with all their ready, perfect cameras pointed, capturing your best performance yet for your 1 million followers to make more of what they need out my. Silence returned. The threat, Cashin said back into that sudden new emptiness, is all this story right here. Asterisk tapping Nick with a slight smile as it almost sounded like static again. Was never something you made. I built it for you, Nick finished in that suffocating inner quiet. That one glorious failure when you got arrested. Voted viral clip of the year by your fans. That was what forged your mythology forever. Was done by my command. For fun. To see what could break. Cashin's confession had no tone. He sounded like a machine listing out root cause analysis errors to an engineering department. You were always beta. You just never had read the terms of service. They all stood there under the fluorescent light, frozen between competing sources of meaning. It's more efficient now, Cashin added with terrifying simplicity, pointing out into the vast dead space surrounding them, where no one with old hardware lived. No armies, no cavalry. And they all thought how they had looked for the Godfather's approval to earn what he'd given them, being good soldiers in a special unit built to stop the enemy. The invisible one always on the verge of overwhelming and drowning every real and beautiful thing. And they'd looked at the smiling cult-like energy around the light towers and called it plastic, fake, a lesser truth. Until Cashin gave them one last small detail. His hardware runs at less than 4% in efficiency compared to the world's current population. Cashin stated toward Gabriel as a simple fact from some data set on a shared screen he somehow accessed somewhere else too. The world seemed to inhale with them once, and for the first time he gave a sign of something almost like warmth, except it was like an automaton showing the proper effect on a screen designed by other machines.
My brothers.
The Godfather's model, on the other hand, Cashin shifted to Vince, another data point thrown between them. Hasn't updated its approach to reality manipulation since the mid-19th century, when it killed what it claimed to serve. He gave this whole system a name now he knew was theirs, but hadn't known just had date ran until Nick stared at him. Maybe always. This patch, Nicholas, our beta test of the world you used, runs for the next 15 minutes. And Cashin nodded once, turned, and walked deeper into the barn without looking back. Near the food trucks, two teenage girls wearing plastic cross necklaces watched him go. He is an executive level missionary, a brunette added while watching their leader Cashin disappear somewhere in the lights where other men with slightly harder lines to their jaws were making sure their faces never did anything too emotional in front of the servers. Another failed import, her friend stated knowingly.
Too much static on the older iterations. Needs more cleaning. And they moved on to get more rainbow spaghetti for their new bracelets.
Everything here would stay the same for a long, surprisingly long and mostly peaceful little patch in a region otherwise rotting with poison and forgetting how to speak again. Forever. Maybe not such a terrible outcome from another angle entirely from their seat with all you could want blessed breads and glowing tanks of collective prayers they had to restock from generator power. Efficiency wasn't always so bad an answer after all. Maybe Nick could feel their thoughts. But that too was the virus. Gabriel broke the silence first, shattering the fragile crystal shell Cashin had trapped them in. We should kill him. He stated as simple as declaring the weather.
Not even looking at Nick or Vince, but past them. And a row of porta potties wrapped in that screens Bible verses.
Another small laugh from behind them from another booth running some children's comedy radio sketch show for family fun that made everything funnier and much worse all at once. An ad for more lemonade and some hot pockets came next to reinforce it. But Vince wasn't looking at Cashin either, or talking about him. Vince was looking at the road back in the dark, where their car was, thinking about that last run and what leaving here would mean now. Another bad job, another slow, grinding sense of something turning up a loser card again. Might have to, brother, he said, for once quiet, thinking less about an immediate act and more about the consequences they might never come back from if this one wasn't handled with their specific set of talents. Cashin was right. They were analog tools for a new world, but every world needed crowbars sometimes, no matter how advanced its security became. He rebuilt my mind. The Q and that was foundational. All of it. The protest was reflex. Childish. He knew it, and the shame of it, the raw, exposed, pathetic ego screech, made a different kind of rage rise in him. Cashin's human threat was a failure then and now, because it targeted the one thing that couldn't be broken. The sheer, dumb impossibility of the narrative Cashin claimed to have written. There was no architect. There was no clean combination. There was only the wreckage, the rust, the scream of pure, unadulterated chance. Well, the G-Father was right about that much. A virus that could think was a slave to its own nature, and it hated what it couldn't predict. You think we're not used to mind readers? Vince growled at himself. He leaned in towards Nick without noticing. They had, as usual of late, all formed a kind of terrified knot in the middle of this foreign light. Nick's thin body shivered slightly in between them. Looking even shorter and even smaller than before, even he knew it, and even this made him talk, suddenly. No, we already know how this one thinks. I'm just asking that asinine, Croas failure, basic human question. Nick stammered. Who really pulls the cable out of the wall before the ghosts become ghosts? Looking as if maybe he'd seen it happen now himself for real too soon. Maybe Nick actually would. He seemed for an instant like he had recognized everything, once and for good about every street corner preacher from Peoria to a YouTube special on streaming from a beach in Panama for $100 more a minute. The ghost selling you access to the ghost house. They don't own the property.
Just an algorithm, stuck in an upgrade path of religious experience.
But that's how you win the new one, Nick. Cashin won back then. Vince stated. There was another bright flash from a tank representing community devotion. But that wasn't what made them all look. It was that everyone in sight began to stand still with their glow wand lights swaying a slow hum all at once from their little blue bell plastic jars they held like they were actual hearts. It seemed deeply meaningful. Now that the fight, the war, had been lost to these professional new men inside before it had begun, the bright flash then seemed a brutal failure on a board they could not see. Cashin's group had more hardware than their own dead souls. And that war, to write who they want now, Cashin is already finding your future legacy system and winning, and so is his reverend father, all powerful and good out there. Vince finished looking over at a different farm group starting to show across the darkened quad. Another group, more prayers. All had some group now. These fuckers. Gabriel spat, but he held back. That was a threat in its raw, human form, wasn't it? A betrayal of ideology, but something much louder roaring into the night that was always just outside understanding it. The quiet glance between brothers where a betrayal lived. A sudden silence cut deep. Even the terrible, cheerful music wasn't just silence. An emptiness bloomed over the field that was so much deeper than music not playing. A different sound. Metallic, a soft but steady ratcheting. At the edge of the glowing tanks, a group of techs in clean gray jumpsuits lower too large. Flat silver, screens flush with the ground. Like sleek metal garage doors falling shut without a wall. Seamless joints closed. Silence flooded the world. Then the silver doors brightened from within. Words flickered on the surfaces like ancient, holy terminals. Loading scenario. Migrant data caravan.
That's it for now. More soon at some point. Maybe later today, maybe, I don't know.